And we're gonna talk to our guest tonight, but also the context, and we'll get into this a little later, is the exhibition that's upstairs called Reflect, Refrain, Remake, Remodel, 40 Years of Recrafting KMAC. So it's a 40-year, 40-person survey of this museum. And this talk will highlight our guests and their practice, but also what I want to do is talk about not just their involvement, but about this institution and its relationship to art and artists and the art scene. So we'll kind of hopefully satisfy a lot of those. As we've done with previous talk where we had about 4 or 5 of the other artists, including Lucia Allen, who's with us, is also in the exhibition. So we had another group of artists come and talk. And there's just such a wealth of knowledge with these 2 artists in particular that we're going to talk to today that I thought we would keep the conversation to the both of them. So I'll just introduce our guests. First, we'll be speaking today with William Duffy, who prefers to be called Duffy, William, but just Duffy. He was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, with a special talent for painting and drawing during his youth. He attended and graduated from the Louisville School of Art with an BFA in painting. He would eventually move to sculpture, working in found materials, wood and metal, with stone carving becoming his primary medium. His figurative and abstract sculptures are widely recognized. He's received numerous awards and been featured in exhibitions throughout the United States. He was commissioned by the Kentucky Arts Council to create an award presented in the 2008 recipients of the Governor's Award for the Arts. The 11 pieces were entitled Upward Glance. They were individually carved from steatite. Is that the right way to pronounce that? Steatite. His work can be found in museums and private, corporate, and public collections, including Philip Morris USA, Brown-Forman Corporation, Young Brands, Inc., Humana Inc., the Louisville Orchestra, and the J.B. Speed Art Museum. He was recently included in a New York Times article about the Unknown Project with artist Hannah Drake, which features a set of benches designed by Duffy as part of a memorial to the unknown enslaved families who were brought to the Louisville area. And these are just short bios. If I were to read they're all of their information in bios, that would be all the time we have. So next up is Ed Hamilton. He is a renowned sculptor in the U.S. and abroad. In addition to likewise being a graduate of the Louisville School of Art, he also attended the University of Louisville and Spalding College. He received honorary degrees from U of L and Spalding, as well as the Western Kentucky University in Bowling Green. Early in his career, he worked closely with the Louisville sculptor Garvey Bright, including Bright's Louisville Clock, which I bring up because it's probably one of my earliest childhood memories. I'm from Louisville, I've been here my whole life, and I think as a child seeing this for the first time, I was not only aware of its awesome sort of mechanized, it's like this oversized toy, but also even as a child knew it was a piece of really impressive mesmerizing sculpture. So I didn't know until I got to hang out with him early this year that he was a part of that project. So he's been a teacher, lecturer, and mentor, as well as juror and curator for numerous exhibitions, including here at KMAC over the years. Some of his most notable work in public monuments and sculptures is the Spirit of Freedom Memorial in DC, the Booker T. Washington statue in Hampton University, Virginia, the Smoketown Boxing Legends Monument, the Amistad Memorial in New Haven, Connecticut, one of my favorites, the York statue of Belvedere, and Lincoln on the waterfront. He also is included in the Speed Museum's collection. In February 2006, he published The Birth of an Artist, A Journey of Discovery. In 2009, he published a second book, Creating the Lincoln Memorial, which also coincided with an exhibition at the Speed called Ed Hamilton's Lincoln. He had a previous exhibit at the Speed called From the Other Side, which ran from June 11th to December 29th, 2002. That's just sort of brief bios for both of them, but they want to come up with like Ed Hamilton and William Duffy. So one of the ways I want to start this conversation, like I said, about the exhibition upstairs, is to talk about 1981, which is sort of the beginnings, and there are work, I think we have a work by you that's in the show from 1979, and KMAC is working on a book that we hope to be out by the end of the year, that talks a little bit about the history of the museum, who started it, why it came here, and we, so for Savannah, the renovation of all the cast iron buildings. This is sort of, and then the Kentucky Center for the Arts. And then what Al Shands writes is that it was in this atmosphere that KMAC was born in 1981. With the election of John Lloyd Brown and his wife Phyllis George, it's up until that moment the banner for Kentucky craft was pretty much held in Berea College, and the program of replicating traditions of weaving, pottery, basket making, and furniture. So what began as the Kentucky Art and Craft Foundation in 1981 eventually led the organization to buy this space on Main Street. We started about a block east of here, and we bought this space in 2003. And it's become the museum that it is today. And then also in 1981, I bring this up because it's going to get me to one of my great favorite stories about Duffy. 1981 was also the year the sewers blew. Everybody remembers that. I sort of bring this up because, Duffy, you had talked about one of the ways you got carving, and I wanted to make a distinction that I love the two of you talk about sometimes is, Ed, you work primarily with clay, it's like additive process of sculpting, and you kind of work in stone. And you had this moment, you said that because of a crash site, because of seeing material in its sort of disarray, that sort of inspired you. And quickly you can just sort of talk about that, and I can bring back up some of your other images, but about how you started carving.
Sure.
Just hold that down for just a second and bring that up.
I was working at the Natural History Museum at that time, which is the building right down the block here. And at that time I was still painting and doing silk screening and stuff like that. And I was getting frustrated with the paintings because nothing was selling. But and I was getting tired of painting. So I was coming home from work one day, and for some reason the car took me around to the bank where you used to live, Walnut Street. And this car had jumped the curb and struck a column in the bank, in front of the bank. And the workers were out there cleaning up and whatnot. And I pulled up in a little 73 Honda, I think I had at the time. And I said, what are you going to do with that stone? And I said, well, and they were being sarcastic when they said it, but I meant, they said, we'll put it in your car if you want it. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I do. And they kind of looked at me like, just like, okay, well, it's like, let's work for us. So they loaded it up in my little Honda, and I took it home. And at that point, I had not started carving, but I wanted to do something else other than drawing and painting. And so for months, I kind of circled that piece of stone and just trying to figure out what to do with it. Well, right around that time, there was another sculptor, Paul Fields, who was a local sculptor. And I saw a show, he had a show at WHS Gallery. And after I saw the show, I said, yeah, I think I want to do this. And so, but not having any experience, I took a regular old household claw hammer and a screwdriver that I sharpened the edge of, a flat blade screwdriver. And I just started hammering on it. And what came out of a piece about this size actually turned into about an 8-inch or a 10-inch tall piece called Spread Your Wings. That was my first introduction to carving. Because after that, I had a show at Spalding University, and I had all these paintings and drawings, and that I had, and there were a couple of metal pieces that I was doing. But that piece made the paper. And so I saw it in black and white. The paper was not that big. And there I sat this one piece that I had carved and was like, oh, that's it. That's what I want to do. And so I've been carving ever since. I think that year was 1979 or 80.
Oh, okay. And before that, you was painting and drawing.
Painting and drawing, and no, I was doing other little things like it was nothing on the scale of heads, but I was tinkering with metal and assembling things.
Right.
Yes.
Might I say his drawing was beautiful.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah, you know, it's you can see where the forms come from. And Ed, you talked about in sort of the subtitle of your book, The Birth of an Artist, A Journey of Discovery, that there also was like an important epiphany or discovery that you had that led you to be an artist or to carve. Is that right? I mean, what was the basis of your...
Well, no, that discovery wasn't what led me to do what I do, because I grew up in the heart of the black community at 6 and Walnut Street with a loving family. And my dad and mom were in business. My dad was a tailor and my mother was a barber. And where Duffy got his first marble piece, fragments, that is the only building at 6 and Muhammad Ali that exists today. That's the old original Mammoth Life Insurance Company building. In '64, urban removal came through and moved us all out.
Forget that.
But what happened was, I had no idea. The discovery that I discovered was that I was adopted. And little did I realize, the birth mom was very artistic as well. And when I was graduating from art school, she was graduating from design school in Dayton, Ohio. Played the piano, classical piano, made clothes, this, that, and one thing, another. So I'm thinking I got my talent from the dad and mom that raised me. Well, it obviously just fell off onto me, you know, some kind of way, you know, because you like to emulate people, and that's what we do. But that was the actual discovery that I wrote about in the book. But my birth of becoming very creative started in junior high school. And my junior high school teacher said, I think you got something, I'm going to call your mother. I'll do that for? And I thought, oh God. Well, that's what it was. She wanted to make sure that she could help this young boy with his talent or whatever she thought I had. Subsequently, that went into high school, same situation, and I went to the Art Center School for 4 years that turned into the Little School of Art that Duffy went to. So we're both products of that particular
High school
and art school. So we seem to be following each other, and we both started at met a group called the Old Louisville Art Workshop at 35th and Del Park Terrace. And that's when we really discovered that, hey, there is a place for artists in this town, you know. But we had to really work at it. And we also knew that being black, there was no place for us to showcase our works. But back in that part of the era, we wasn't doing that much anyway to get in the art gallery anyway. You know, we were going to the galleries that were in Louisville, the Fred Meredith Gallery, the Thor Gallery, and obviously the Speed Museum. And this predates the 70s. It was back past that. So we just held upon ourselves and churned with the other groups that we hooked up with. We confronted Speed Museum, wanted to know why don't they come to our studios. And the late great Franklin Page had a symposium one evening at Speed Museum. It was he and what's her name, big gal, Marlene Big at the time. So Duffy, myself, and G.C. Cox, the Dean of Black Art, who has passed away now. I said, man, we got to go to this meeting and see what they're talking about. You know, they're talking about New York and California and L.A. and all these places. We need to get there and see what's happening. So we go to this thing, we're sitting on the second row, and they're talking about, oh, what's happening in L.A. I'm not hearing nothing about Louisville, Kentucky. So I'm biting at the bit for Q&A. They stop, they start now, we're going to open up the floor for questions and whatever. I said, Mr. Page, with all due respect, when are you and the new art collectors are going to come and take a look at some of the local talent that we have in Louisville, Kentucky, our studios? Now, I'm not sure exactly what he said at the time. And I don't think it was the right answer I was looking for. And I thought, oh Lord, I'm in trouble now. I've been banished from Bogey Land. So, ultimately what happened was, several months later, don't you know, all of a sudden new collectors are coming out and started coming to our studio. Now, was that the impetus that they need to be confronted with that issue? I said, here's another fine mess you got us into, Bobby. So, you know, we had to get out and scrape and put ourselves out. And when Duff said the newspaper was this big, he's right. And the good news is, before Diane Heidelman became the art curator, there was a lovely lady by the name of Sarah Lansdale for the Curry Drum. And somehow she latched on to the workshop and us as artists. And every Sunday, we all would say, man, anybody make the paper this Sunday? Anybody get in? You know? And that was what we tried to do, was to make our statements and let you know that we existed. That was the issue. Did the black artists exist at all in this town? And so I think we all have proven ourselves now that we know we do.
Well, I want to go, we have some images and some more kind of questions about the scene, but I wanted to quickly just go to today because I wanted to talk about the two pieces of the show, particularly because you both, one of the conversations you all both have is this figurative and kind of abstract history with work. And so the piece in the show we have by Ed is this, what I guess you might refer to as the Junkology series called Juju Man from 1979. And then for Duffy is a very, very, very recent piece, which is a stone carving, which we can't figure out the stone, right? I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that dialogue because you both do this. I mean, you both early on worked and kind of found abstract sculptures, although there's always it's always kind of portraiture or a head or something. Oh, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about both the abstract work and the found materials, but also how that also just translates into your such precise, you know, carving, portraiture.
Rodin, David Smith. I got caught up in Rodin's work, Henry Moore,
The Gucci.
I was in art school, and I couldn't decide who I wanted to be. Once I found David Smith, all those wonderful welded pieces. And the beauty of art school was that they allowed us to be able to experience all disciplines. And some professors and teachers want you to do what they do. But my sculpture instructor said, no, he was a wood carver. Well, I played with wood carving. Then we tried stone carving. Good for you, Bill. One stone carving. That was it for me. I said, well, if I knock this nose off, I can't put it back. So my instructor said, you were in charge of the clay bin. And I'd already been doing clay from high school, so I was well aware of my clay abilities. But Well, once we found all the materials and the equipment that we had in art school, we had a patron that actually purchased all of the bronze casting stuff that we had, the furnace and all that stuff. Actually gave me some torch hoses and things like that. So I started just playing around with the welding torch, you know, and making stuff abstractly. But then I'd run across the room and I'd get my clay out and do some figure stuff. So now I'm caught between two images. I'm caught between the abstract and the real. Well, I think it's good that I found the real, because if I'd still been doing the abstract, I don't think I'd be talking to you today. And that was because of meeting Barney Bright. And that was the key to me becoming who I am today. And that's so important. That's so important. Because Duffy, when we first met, you were working on a